Welcome to the Vista Wellness Center. I'm Amalia, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the spine and some of the ways that we can take care of our spine. So in this yoga snack or short practice, I'm going to offer you 2 ways to care for your spine, which in turn will affect your head, your neck, your shoulders, really your whole body, that you can do seated in a chair, and one that you can do with the assistance of a chair if you're able to get up and stand for a few moments. So I know that around 5 years ago, maybe more than that, I started hearing the phrase that sitting is the new smoking. And I'm personally not a fan of that phrase. I think one of the many reasons that it lacks clarity and specificity is that it's really not the act of sitting that is inherently challenging for our health. Really, what's challenging for our health oftentimes is that we hold the same shapes in our body for long periods of time, and that we limit the expressions of movement or the variety of movement that's available to us. Now, if you stood all day in the same position, that might have just as many detrimental effects as if you sit all day. Another reason that I don't love that phrase is that I recognize there are a lot of people for whom sitting is the reality of their lives. Maybe your job dictates that you sit in your chair for the most part of the day. Maybe you are confined to a seat because of injury. Maybe you use a wheelchair for support. There are a lot of reasons that people might sit, and I really don't like for people who need or choose to sit for there to be this connotation that the choice that might have been foisted on you to sit necessarily means that you aren't caring for your health or that you can't move your body. So that's what I want to explore in today's yoga snack. And thanks so much for joining me. We're going to start standing. So if this is not available to you, you can just pause, do something on your own, maybe roll your shoulders or wiggle your fingers, and I'll come down to sit in the chair for the next 2 exercises in just a moment. If you are able to stand, I'm going to be using the back of the chair, and I'm going to be mobilizing the spine through flexion and extension, which basically means I'm going to round the spine or dome my back up toward the ceiling, and I'm going to kind of sink the spine toward the floor in the shape of the hammock. One of the reasons that this is so good for the spine is because when things are stiff or tight or haven't been moved much, this is a way of bringing global movement to all the areas of the spine. So all of those natural curves that we have an inward curve here at the base of the neck, your cervical spine, and we have an outward curve here in the upper back, at least most of us do in the thoracic spine. We have an inward curve again at the lumbar spine or the low back, and then we have an outward curve again as the spine transitions into the tailbone. And in the spaces in between the vertebral column, we have cerebrospinal fluid, which helps to lubricate and ensure that we have kind of smooth gliding movements in the spine. And that cerebrospinal fluid also has a lot of other essential roles. It helps to move and carry waste products out of the body. So any amount that we're able to move the spine and therefore move that cerebrospinal fluid can really help us kind of refresh and maybe feel a little bit clearer, a little better in our bodies. So I'm going to do standing cat and cow using the back of the chair like this. I'll rest my hands on the back of the chair, and I want you to notice that you don't have to put your wrists in a position that might be stressful on them. So I'm going to use my thumbs to grip the back of the chair and keep this nice kind of long line through the wrists. The way that you hold your chair is up to you. I'm going to back my feet up so that they sit just behind my hips. And then I am going to put a little bend in my knees because so far it's morning and the backs of my legs are still feeling a little bit tight. So you might like to bend your knees more than I am, or you might like to straighten your legs. When I come into this movement of flexion and extension in the spine, I'm going to think about leading or initiating, starting that movement at my pelvis. So I'm going to think of taking this tailbone and rounding it down to look at the floor. And as I round the tailbone, You might feel the whole pelvis tilt, the front of the pelvis moving up toward my belly button. That's going to start this action that will ripple through my low back or the lumbar spine, the middle of my back, finally into my upper back, and then even including the back of my neck and my head. So you can think of this as the Halloween cat shape. And then again, starting with the pelvis, I'm going to reach my tailbone back. I'm going to let that carry my belly toward the floor. I'm going to let that start to draw my chest forward, my head forward, my gaze forward. So now you can see more of that hammock shape in the spine. And then I'm going to continue like this, always beginning in the pelvis, curling the tailbone down, rounding the low, middle, upper back, and the back of the neck. And then again with the pelvis, reaching the tailbone back in space and letting that unfurl through the rest of the spine. And if it felt good, you could add a breathing pattern here, exhaling as you curl your tailbone, round your back body. Inhaling as you start to extend or lengthen your spine out. So I'm going to have you continue a couple rounds like this, or really as long as you like until you feel content or satisfied with the movement. One of the interesting things about the spine and those natural curves in the spine is we might think the straighter we can make our spine, the longer it will be. But actually your spine is at its longest when it's maintaining those curves, those natural curves. And the spine is curled or coiled kind of like a spring because one of its jobs is to act as a shock absorber. So we want curves in our spine. We want the curves that develop naturally to stay present. So our end goal isn't to flatten out or straighten the spine. It's to move the spine and to learn how to move from and with those natural curves for support. I'm going to take one more round here. And you could do this, you could do this just 2 or 3 times and sprinkle it in and out through your day. Okay, and now I'm going to walk in and turn my chair and show you 2 really brief practices you can do while sitting. So maybe you don't have time or space or the ability to come up out of your squeaky chair. And the first one is to reach your arms out to either side. I'm going to keep a bend in my elbows. And I'm going to draw my fingernails back toward my upper arms. And I'm going to do that to the amount that I can and that maybe offers me some sensation. I start to feel in my body a little bit of a tingling almost down the backs of the arms. And what I'm going to do when I get here is I'm going to think of reaching my elbows away from each other. I'm going to let my shoulders slide down my back so I'm not hunching them up toward my ears. And then I'm going to reach elbows out in space. And let's take a few breaths in and out. You could close your eyes, or if you're seated somewhere where you have something you can look at that is nice to see, maybe gazing out a window, or if you have pictures or art on your walls or in the space around you. You might have to remind yourself a few times to let the shoulders continue to slide down on the back of your body and to reach your elbows away. Really nice. And then if you wanted, you could start to press your palms away from each other, like you're trying to make the space you're in bigger or send the walls in opposite directions. And you can do any of this a little bit or a lot. This is where sensation starts to get really loud for me. Like the undersides of my arms are really talking here. So I might take just a breath or 2. If you start to notice that you're clenching your teeth or curling up your toes, maybe back off a little bit. And then let's let the arms come down and rest by your sides. Great. And the last practice that I want to show you is one where we are going to aim to target the piriformis, or a little muscle that really, sometimes when we leave it alone too long and we sit a long time, can become quite a literal pain in the butt. So I'm going to scoot right up to the edge of my chair. And if it's accessible to you, you're going to bring one of your legs up and cross it over the thigh bone of your other leg. So I've got my right ankle crossed over my left thigh. And if it was hard to bring your leg all the way up this high, maybe you extend or straighten out that bottom leg so that that thigh that's going to be the shelf for the crossing leg is a little bit lower down, and you could try it like this. I happen to like this way for today, at least. This is what works for me. And then I'm going to try to think of the shape I made when I was making more of a hammock spine. Or I'm going to tilt my chest forward and I'm going to reach my tailbone back. So I'm thinking of scooping out a little curve at the low back or the lumbar spine. And then I'm just going to notice what's lighting up in this right outer hip and kind of sliding into the back of my glute where I might feel a little bit of a wake up sensation. And here again, you can do this in the way that works for you. Maybe you want to close your eyes. You can imagine that your breath is going to the area of most sensation in your body, like you're giving it lots of space with your inhale. And with your exhale, you can imagine softening, softening. Let's take one more on this side. And of course, this is your body. And so if this is feeling great, you can stay longer. If this one doesn't work in your body, maybe you skip it altogether. That's always up to you. I'm going to go to the second side now. So now I'm crossing left ankle over the top of my right thigh. And again, when I get here, I might make a little bit of an effort to tilt my pelvis forward. And I can also think of that as reaching my tailbone back and sending my chest forward, or like I'm folding toward my legs, just a couple of inches. This is also a great place to give your foot a little squeeze. Your feet and toes, especially if they're out of your shoes for a moment, will probably appreciate an opportunity to get some love or to get some movement of their own. You could wiggle your toes. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Inhale and exhale all the way out. And one more, imagining if you'd like that the breath is going to the area in your body of the most sensation. And so you could put lots of space there and then let it go. Great, and then unwind. And let's close our practice just sitting a couple minutes or a couple moments quietly. You can rest your hands wherever they're comfortable. I'm going to close my eyes, but you do what works for you. If your eyes are open, maybe again, you find that thing in your environment that reminds you of joy or gives you a little spark of happiness to see. You could leave the eyes open, but just imagine you're softening your focus. The eyes can become a little bit relaxed. Pausing here just long enough that you can give yourself a little nugget of appreciation for tuning in and listening to your body, for caring for your spine. I'm going to send lots of appreciation and empathy. If you're having any kind of challenges existing in your human body, I really resonate, and I know how hard that can be on some days, maybe every day. So any little bit of grace that you're able to give yourself, let's just take a minute to breathe that in and let it go. Right. I hope you've enjoyed this yoga snack, and I'm sending all the best wishes to your spine and the rest of you. And I'll see you next time here at Vista Wellness Center. Thanks.